Today we're working in Chapter 5, Lesson 5, page 387. Our learning target today is that we can compare and order rational numbers, and that is going to include negatives and repeating decimals, not just whole numbers. Okay, so we're extending that a little bit. Our real world length, insects. The length of several common types of insects are shown in the table. Which of the insects is the longest? So when we look at our table, we're looking for which insect is the longest. We have 3/4. We have 1/1, which would simplify to 1, 1/3, 3/4, 1/4, 1/2, and 5/8. So 1 inch is the longest length. So the cricket is the longest. Number 2, shade each fraction strip to represent the lengths of a firefly and a housefly, and then which is longer, fire ant. The fire ant and housefly, which is longer, the fire ant or the housefly? Let's do the fire ant. Let's see, that's 1/3. So fire ant is 1/3, and the housefly is 1/4. All right, and so we can see that the 1/3 is longer, and the 1/3 was the fire ant. So the fire ant is longer. And then number 3, how many of the insects are longer than 1/2 inch? So we go up to our table. All right, so the green June beetle is 3/4 of an inch. So that's longer than 1/2 inch. So I'll put a check mark there. And then the cricket is 1 inch. That's longer than 1/2 inch. The fire ant is 1/3 of an inch. That's not longer than 1/2 inch. The firefly, yes, longer than 1/2 inch because it's 3/4 of an inch. The housefly, no, 1/4 is not greater than 1/2. Japanese beetle, no, because 1/2 is equal to 1/2, not greater. And the mosquito, 5/8, yes, because 5/8 is more than 1/2. 4/8 would be exactly 1/2. 5/8 is more than 1/2. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 insects that are longer than 1/2 inch. And then if we wanted to be very specific, you could list them. We just put it in our table here: green June beetle, the cricket, the firefly, and the mosquito. All right, so number 4, order the lengths of a housefly, a green June beetle, and a fire ant from longest to shortest. So housefly is 1/4 of an inch. The green June beetle was 3/4 of an inch, and a fire ant and the fire ant was 1/3 of an inch. Okay, so the longest one would be the green June beetle. We can see that's the only one that's over 1/2 inch. So 3/4 would go right here. We'll just abbreviate that: green June beetle. And then the fire ant and the housefly, we just compared these above. The shortest one was the housefly, and then the fire ant was larger. So 1/4 of an inch. That's the housefly. I'll just abbreviate that: HF. And then the fire ant at 1/3 of an inch. Just in case you want to have those labeled. Okay, so 1/4 is the shortest, then 1/3, then 3/4 of an inch. Okay, let's go to page 388. Compare decimals and fractions. Positive and negative rational numbers can be represented on a number line. You can use a number line to help you compare and order rational numbers. Examples. Number 1, or directions say, excuse me, fill in each circle with less than, greater than, or equal to make a true statement. Number 1, -12 is what than 8/10, or excuse me, -1.2 is what than 8/10. So first of all, we don't even need to look at the absolute values of the numbers. We know that any negative number is less than any positive number. And then graph the decimals on the number line. So negative 1.2 would be here. Positive 0.8 is here. We can see that the 8/10 is larger than the negative 1 2/10. Since negative 1 2/10 is to the left of 8/10, negative 1 2/10 is less than 8/10. Number 2, negative 1 40/100 is what than negative 1 25/100. So if you think of these like money, okay, if they were positive, this would be $1.40 and this would be $1.25. They're actually negative. So this is negative $1.40 and negative $1.25. Okay, so if you're comparing these, you want to look at them as negative. So here's our, they actually graphed this one for us on a vertical number line. So negative $1.25, or negative, excuse me, negative 1 25/100 is here, negative 1 40/100 is here. This is higher up, so that is the larger number, okay? And if you think of this like debt, okay, a person who owes, that's the negative, $1.40 has less money than a person who owes, that's the negative, $1.25. Okay, so that helps as well sometimes when you're looking at decimals to look at them as if they're money. Okay, number 3. Rename the fractions using the least common denominator. We have negative 3/8 and negative 5/16. So we want to have a common denominator. Negative 3/8, we can rewrite that as negative 6/16. And then the negative 5/16 is already has a denominator of 16. So then we can graph them on a number line. Negative 5/16 is here, negative 6/16 is here. So since the negative 5/16 is farther to the right means it's larger. So the negative 5/16 is larger. So when we read this inequality, we say negative 3/8 is less than negative 5/16. Okay, and this was our negative 3/8. We just rewrote that with the denominator of negative 6/16, so we could compare them on the same number line. Okay, let's take a look at the examples at the bottom. All right, letter A, 3 1/10 is what than negative 3 7/10. So remember, any positive number is greater than any negative number. So we don't need to look at the absolute values. We just know that a positive is greater than a negative. Okay, letter B. This is negative 4.5, or if you think of it as money, a debt of $4.50. And then negative 4 49/100, if you think of it as money, a debt of $4.49. Okay, so the person with a debt of $4.49 has just a little bit more money than the person who has a debt of $4.50. So negative 4 5/10 is less than negative 4 49/100. Okay, letter C, these already have a common denominator, so that makes it very straightforward to compare. We have 9/16 and 12/16. So having 12/16 is greater, okay, than having 9/16. So when we read this inequality, we read it as 9/16 is less than 12/16. Okay, letter C, we want to have a common denominator. This is negative 7/10. So let's go ahead and change this negative 4/5 into tenths as well. So negative 4/5 is the same as negative 8/10. Okay, and because they're negative, right, negative 7 is farther to the right than negative 8/10. So negative 7/10 is farther to the right than negative 8/10. So negative 7/10 is greater. All right, so that means negative 7/10 is greater than negative 4/5. All right, moving over to page 389. Compare and order rational numbers. To compare and order numbers, first write them in the same form. So if you have fractions and decimals, you want to change them either both to fractions or both to decimals. Fill in each circle with less than, greater than, or equal to make a true statement. So number 4, we have negative 51 hundredths and negative 8/15. So we want to change these so either they're both fractions with a common denominator or so that they are both decimals. So the one on the left is already a decimal, and I'm not really confident that I can easily find a common denominator between 51 hundredths and 8/15. So I'm going to leave this one as a decimal, and I'm going to change the negative 8/15 into a decimal. So I'm comparing decimal to decimal. So I'm going to do that division problem over here to the side, negative 8/15. So that means I'll be doing 8 divided by 15. Okay, 15 is too big to go into 8. So above the 8, I write a 0, write a decimal after the 8 because it's not 80, it's just 8. And then I can annex a 0. Okay, 15 can go into 80 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25, write the 5, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus the 2 we carried is 7. So let me subtract 80 minus 75 is 5. Okay, then annex another 0 so we can bring that down. 15, 30, 45, that's gonna, I'm just counting by 15s. That can go in 3 times. 3 times 15 is 45. Then I subtract, which gives me 5. I annex another 0. 15, I already said, can go into 53 times. And we can see that this pattern is just going to repeat. Okay, so 8/15 is 0.53 repeating. So negative 8/15 is negative 0.53 repeating. So this is a complex problem. I'm going to write it over here. That's a little too small. So negative 51 hundredths is what than negative 0.53 with the 3 repeating. Okay, so if we think of a debt, this is a debt of 51 cents. This is a debt of about 53 cents. So owing 51 cents means you have a little bit more money than if you owed 53 cents. Okay, owing 51 cents is a little bit more, means you have a little bit more money or greater than owing 53 cents approximately. And that's written down here in the final form. Negative 51 hundredths is greater than negative 8/15. Okay, moving on to number 5. This is a more difficult problem. So we have negative 2 and 46 hundredths, negative 2 and 22 25ths, and negative 2 and 1/10. So the textbook changed them all to decimals. I actually would rather change them all to fractions because when I look at these, I can see this 46 hundredths. I see 22 25ths, which I know that I could easily change 25ths to hundredths. And I see tenths, and I know that I can easily change tenths to hundredths. So I would actually say it's easier to put them all as a common denominator of hundredths, okay? So negative 2 and 46 hundredths, we would write negative 2 and 46 hundredths. Okay, I don't have to do any long division or changing things into decimals. Negative 2 and 22 25ths is going to be negative 2, and I'm going to change this to hundredths. So to get from 25 to, let me zoom in a little bit on that. To get from 25 to 100, I would need to multiply by 4. So to get from 22 to my new numerator, I would also need to multiply by 4, and that would give me 88. And then here I have negative 2 and 1/10. I'm going to write that as negative 2 and blank over 100. To get from 10 to 100, I needed to multiply by 10. So to get from 1 to my new numerator, I also need to multiply by 10. Okay, so if these were positive numbers, it would be 10, then 46, then 88. Okay, if these were positive, the smallest one would be 10, then 46, then 88. Okay, but they're negatives. So we wanted, and this was least to greatest. Yeah, so we're gonna, it's actually the opposite. Okay, so negative 2, I'll write it here. Negative 2 and 88 hundredths. Okay. And then negative 2 and 46 hundredths. And then negative 2 and 10 hundredths. Okay, so that's least to greatest, but these weren't the actual numbers that we were given. So we need to go back to our original numbers in their original form. So the -2 and 88/100 was actually -2 and 22/25. So we'll write that -2 and 22/25. The -2 and 46/100 was actually -2 and 46/100, but in decimal form, -2.46. And the -2 and 10/100 was actually -2 and 1/10. So -2 and 1/10. Okay, and then we box our answer. Okay, now the textbook didn't change them to fractions. The textbook changed them all to decimals, which is actually not that much more difficult, but they put them as decimals and then put them on the number line. That's a helpful strategy, especially if you're not sure of that least to greatest, or the negatives throw you off a little bit. Okay. Example E at the bottom of the page. Fill in so we're comparing -5/8 and -3 and 625 thousandths. So we want to put these, I would want to put these both into decimal form. So 5/8, I happen to have memorized, that's 0.625. So this would be -3.625. You could divide that out with long division if you don't have that memorized. And then here we have -3.625 as well. So they're both -3.625 in decimal form, so they are equal. Okay, letter F, we have 3/7 and 413 thousandths. I do not have 3/7 memorized, so this one I need to divide out. 3 divided by 7, 3 divided by 7. So 7 is too big to go into 3. So above the 3, I write a 0. 7 can go into 30 4 times. 4 times 7 is 28. 30 minus 28 is 2. Annex a 0 to bring it down. 7 can go into 20 2 times with 6 left over. Annex another 0. This can go in 8 times. 8 times 7 is 56. Okay, and I don't have to keep dividing because I don't know how far that's going to divide out. Like I might have to go, like this might continue for many, many decimal places. So this is actually, I forgot to bring my decimal straight up. This is actually all I need to be able to compare, because if I look at 3/7 and I have 0.428, and then I'm just going to put an ellipsis there, the dot, 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 because I don't know how far I would have to divide this out. But I stopped because I have enough information to answer my question. Okay, so 428 thousandths is greater than 413 thousandths, so greater than. So that means 3/7 is greater than 413 thousandths. Okay, again, I stopped here not because I finished. Okay, I still needed to subtract here, annex another 0, and I could continue dividing that out. But I didn't need to continue dividing this out because I had enough information to answer my question, which was, which one is greater? So 3/7 is greater than 413 thousandths. Letter G, order the set from greatest to least. Okay, so this is not what we typically do. Okay, we're going greatest to least. So first of all, I want to compare these. This is hundredth, this is hundredth. I can easily make this into hundredths. So I'm just going to put them all as decimals. So this is already -7.78. This would be -7 and 1700ths, so -7.17. And I can easily make 20 into hundredths by multiplying by 5. Okay, so this is going to be -7 points. So if I multiply both the numerator and denominator by 5, this will become hundredths. Okay, so 13 times 5, I'll just do that off to the side here, 65. So -7 and 65 hundredths. Okay, so now greatest to least, okay, and I have to remember that they're negative. So this is, and not only are these numbers negative, but they're also having us order them from greatest to least, when usually we are asked to go from least to greatest. Okay, so this is going to be -7.17. And then -7.65. and then negative 7.78. Okay, and then what I did in my mind while I wrote that was because I knew that these were negative, okay, which is the opposite of positive, right? And I knew that we were going from greatest to least, which is the opposite of least to greatest. So in my mind, what I did was I looked at just the positives or the absolute values and put those in order from least to greatest. So I ignored the negative signs in my mind. And then I put 7.17, 7.65, 7.78. In other words, $7.17, $7.65, and then $7.78. I just ignored the negatives. And then I did in my mind least to greatest with the positives. So I kind of used that to my advantage. Okay, so that's just how I thought through that problem. Any way that you think through it is fine. Then this is not our complete answer because this was not 7.17, negative 7.17. It was negative 7 and 1700. So we need to write that in the correct format that we were given. So negative 7 and 1700. Okay, and then this wasn't negative 7.65. This was actually negative 7 and 13/20. And this one was negative 7.78. Okay, so that's our answer from in greatest to least. Okay, let's turn the page to 390. Mr. Plum's science class is growing plants under different conditions. The table shows the difference from the average for some students' plants. Order the differences from least to greatest. Okay, least to greatest. So I probably put these all in decimal form and then least to greatest. Okay, so this is 3 1/4, which as a decimal would be 3.25. Negative 2.2 is already a decimal. 1.7 is already a decimal. Negative 1 7/10, negative 1 7/10. Okay, so from least to greatest would be negative 2.2. And actually this problem is done for us right down here. So least is negative 2.2. And then the next smallest is at negative 1.7. So negative 1 7/10. And then next is 1.7. And the greatest was 3 1/4. Okay. All right, so that was chapter 5, lesson 5, and we just took notes on pages 387 to 390.